It started with an email most people would have ignored, a subject line so ordinary it barely whispered for attention. Yet in that quiet moment, it became the first tremor of something much larger. In a teenager's dimly lit bedroom, amid the clutter of notebooks and half-finished homework, a glowing monitor cast soft light across a messy desk, waiting for curiosity to take the first step. The email itself hung in front of him like a glitch in the dark, a single line floating in the void, glowing brighter than it had any right to. But the real story didn't begin at home. It began in a quiet school library, the kind of place where nothing ever happens, except the things no one sees. At one of those empty tables, the teen leaned forward over a school Chromebook, hoodie pulled tight, headphones at his neck, absorbing every pixel that flickered onto the screen. He relaxed back into his chair, scrolling casually, not yet knowing he was drifting toward the crack in the facade. Then he saw them. Two financial statistics that didn't match. They weren't even close. Side by side on his screen, they contradicted each other so blatantly it felt impossible. He rubbed his forehead, confused, staring at the numbers as if a second glance might make them align. Instead, errors bloomed across the screen, a swarm of overlapping messages that made him wonder if the problem was him. But the deeper he dug, the more the documents began to spiral around him. Numbers, forms, filings, all swirling in a tightening vortex of contradictions. Soon the data formed rings around his mind. Grants, tax forms, contractor lists, a halo of digital paper he couldn't unsee. He printed everything he could. Pages poured from the printer like it was trying to empty the secret itself into his hands. The binder he used couldn't contain it. Every page he added forced another one out, until it swelled into something alive. Nights were spent at the kitchen table, under a single bulb, flipping through hundreds of documents with a mix of dread and purpose. One line stopped him cold. Program outreach. $84 million. A number too big, too clean, too perfect. He hovered over the glowing send button on the email, cursor trembling as it approached the moment that would change everything. The next day, in a school hallway, a journalist approached him, black suit, white shirt, holding the very documents he'd flagged. Under harsh overhead lights, the journalist handed him a binder, overflowing with proof far beyond what he'd uncovered. Someone had been watching his steps. The two of them examined a glowing map, a global web of charities connected by lines so tangled they looked more like wires in a trap. In a shadowy boardroom, audit documents lay scattered across a polished table, unsigned contracts, questionable receipts, and numbers that didn't belong. Even the contractor profiles were empty. Blank silhouettes, missing names, digital ghosts pretending to be people. Two inflated invoices told the truth louder than words, prices jacked up tenfold, highlighted like warnings in neon. But in the real world, out in the dust, field workers stood with empty crates, their hands holding nothing but hope that never arrived. Side by side, the glowing spreadsheet full of wealth and the barren field where resources should have gone created a split reality too stark to ignore. Then the headlines began. Floating panels of breaking news, each more urgent than the last, flooding the world with the story. Somewhere else, a donor sat alone at a kitchen table, her receipt illuminated by a lamp, realizing the difference between giving and being taken. In government offices, towering stacks of audit files stamped urgent rose like paper monuments to negligence long ignored. Under studio lights, officials stood behind microphones, answering questions they had avoided for years. And then there was the teen, standing at a podium, white hoodie bright in the spotlight, speaking to a crowd of blurred faces who finally listened. There, on the school steps, he sat with the overflowing binder in his lap, the weight of truth heavier than he'd ever expected. Outside, walls of glossy charity posters shone in perfect symmetry, each promising hope, each masking something far more complicated. Behind the scenes, in empty server rooms, powered-down screens kept silent, holding records that once hid everything in plain sight. Back in a dim classroom, a single sunbeam cut through the window, illuminating the teen as if the world itself was acknowledging him. Somewhere else, a symbolic scale tipped, a tiny glowing orb outweighing blocks labeled power, proving that sometimes truth is heavier than force. In the darkness, a single desk lamp illuminated the overflowing binder, the source material of a scandal born from paperwork and persistence. Up close, the binder seemed to glow on its own, as if truth, once revealed, had its own light. The teen's metallic hand tightened around it, determination pulsing through reflective veins. On his screen, that first email, the one that started everything, now glowed like a beacon. And in the quiet bedroom where it all began, the laptop still sat on the desk, chair pushed back, the glow waiting for the next person willing to look closer. Because stories like this don't end. They echo, they spread, they wait, and sometimes all it takes to follow them is a single click.